Good morning, traders. I'm Dennis Dick.
My name's Jake LeCure. Welcome to Pre-Market Info.
Well, Jake, we've got the S&P futures again pretty tight here overnight. If you bring up the ES chart there, 1670 and a half is where we're trading at right now. Down 50 cents, been as high as 1673, as low as 1665.75. So we've had a tight 8-point range. How are you doing here this morning?
I'm doing great. We got a huge day of earnings today. Some big names reported this morning, and after the close, we're really starting to pick up speed. So things are getting exciting on the micro side here.
Yeah, we do have some big guns that have reported here this morning. Let's start with the biggest gun this morning is Bank America. They just reported earnings of 32 cents versus 25 cents, so they beat by 7 cents. Being on the top line as well, 22.9 billion versus 22.79 billion. Not rallying as much as you'd think. If we look at Goldman's big beat yesterday, it seems like these financials are coming out beating the numbers, but they're not really rallying them. Goldman actually, rallied right in the morning, but actually gave back all of those gains there throughout the regular session. So not sure if Bank America is going to do the same thing, but it is trading up a dime here this morning. What are your thoughts on Bank America there, Jake?
Well, you did trade up a lot, but a lot of the spike actually came before the earnings. When the earnings were reported, it kind of came back down. On the Goldman side, I think traders really expect Goldman to, knock the ball out of the park every
Right.
time. It seems like they've just been sandbagging for all the reports, so that could be why they kind of came back down. Now, Bank of America did rely on a lot of their profit figure to come from loss and loan preserves, so that's something to kind of take a look at there. So. I wouldn't be surprised if they held on to some of the gains, but I wouldn't think they would be back up to, that 14-16 level. I wouldn't think they'd get that high.
And that's how high it did trade right before the number was reported, I guess up to 14.16, or right after it too. I guess it ticked back up there again. That whole $14 does remain a big psychological level for this. It is at 14.05, but it seems to be struggling to get away from this $14 number. We got as high as 14.02 yesterday, so we did take out the psychological resistance. So it does open up the book a little bit when you get through that 14, meaning it has the potential to obviously trade higher, which actually, as I'm speaking, it's up at 14.07 now. So we'll keep an eye on that pre-market high, which is 14.16. We'll also keep an eye on the big psychological number at 14 for a key swing number on Bank America today. Let's just go to last night's reports because we had a couple big ones. YHOO reported earnings, YHOO. Stock actually is trading up here now this morning. It was wild there last night. Actually traded way down. I'll give you the numbers. 35 cents versus 30 cents. They beat on the top line too, 1.14 billion versus 1.08 billion. If you look at the chart though in the pre-market, they're showing it got as low last night as 26.01. They did start talking on the conference call saying, the buyback's going to continue. Said lots of good things, which did help the stock to rally in the after-hours session. Ended up closing the after-hours session fairly strong, and that strength has continued here this morning, and we are approaching the after-hours high that we set there last night there, Jake.
Well, if you look at some of the comments from the conference call, you're seeing that they're dropping their headcount by 9% year over year. That includes the new Tumblr employees they've brought in, so they're really trimming things down there. And some of the guidance really did not impress traders. So, it was a good beat on the earnings, but the guidance wasn't, very, incredibly strong there. They got at their fiscal year revenue 4.45 billion to 4.55 billion, which was, puts it at the low end of the range that the street was expecting. They were expecting about 4.54 billion, while they're looking at their Q3 revenues coming in at 1.06 to 1.10 billion. Street there is expecting 1.12 billion. So revenues are expected to come in a little bit more thin than the street was expecting, and I think that that's kind of what gave some of the volatility. It's the conference call and the bottom line report versus the lowered guidance.
2768 is the 52-week high. That was set back on May the 15th. We are 27 cents away from there right now. Just ticked at 27.41. Now 27.40, 27.41. So we're just below where that 52-week high is. Obviously, that's a level that some traders might target in the regular session. If we can take that out, maybe you can make a run in the 28. But I think you'll see resistance probably forming right where we're at right now, 27.40 all the way up to 27.68, until we can take that out. And just remember, there is a lot of air below because we did trade down there in the after-hour session down to 26.01. 2601. So hard to really say that there's a lot of support until you get to that 2601 pre-market low. Also reporting last night was CSX. CSX actually beat 52 cents versus 47. Stock traded up after hours, is trading up here again this morning. If we look at the after hours chart, we're kind of just it's kind of the magnet trade happened here at 25 right now. But wow, some news algo got real excited last night, bought it up. It looks like as high as 26.24. These guys really overshoot sometimes on these earnings reports. Came all the way back down to reality almost immediately, but has found a home just above 25, trading right around the 25 area. Jake, what are you
nothing
saying?
too exciting about the guidance there is right in line there. EPS did look strong and a nice little 5-cent beat. So you're right. The news algos really got excited on that beat. And then when the company didn't bring out any new guidance, I think they tried to get out of that before the Cuban traders got in and actually corrected the stock.
We've got a few that have reported here this morning. Smaller companies. Mattel I want to highlight because they actually missed. MAT. Stocks trading down to over 5% here right now. 21 cents they only made against estimates of 32, so that's a big miss for Mattel. 1.17 billion versus 1.22 billion, so slight miss on the top line as well. Stocks trading down very significantly here, just ticked to 44 bucks. Wow, this is just crazy. Beat up here for Mattel, basically going from the highs just a few days ago. It had been on a heck of a run all the way down to the lows of the last couple of months, and we've got a big level down here, Jake. I'm looking at this whole 43.80 level where it has bottomed basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times in the past. In June, it made a low between 43.80, I think it is, 43.78 and 43.92. We have 6 lows in that area, so that's a big area. It's trading there right now. The low of the pre-market actually is, I believe, right there too at 43.85. So if it can hold that area, maybe you can try to pick a bottom. If it starts to take out that 43.78, then it will open up again. But this is a big move. It's a stock that looks like it could open into support, which could give a decent setup. But just watch, if it starts to take out the 43.78, then Katie bar the door on Mattel.
Yeah, I definitely think you're right there. With as thin as the volume is right now on it, if it could definitely open up with some momentum to the downside. So that 43 level looks pretty interesting.
And it's a good point you're making there, Jake. Only 1,300 shares have traded yet here, so we're going to get a lot more information before the 9:30 open. Always here on Pre-Market Info, we talk about the levels, we talk about where it's trading pre-market. We don't really encourage you, unless you're a real pro out there, to trading in the pre-market though, because it's high risk, high return. But use those levels that the things are trading in the pre-market to gauge if you're trading in the regular session. Obviously, we like you trading the regular session a little better because there's more liquidity and you can liquidate those positions a little bit quicker. On stock like Mattel, you could end up buying in the pre-market 43.85. It may trade a couple hundred shares and be down to 43 on you. So it's a little tricky to trade these stocks, especially these thinner ones in the pre-market. But use those pre-market levels as parameters when you're trading the regular session. Hasbro also trading down in sympathy. HAS stock is trading down 80 cents right now in the pre-market at 46.32. Obviously going to show some weakness with Mattel here reporting such a bad quarter. Any thoughts there on Hasbro, Jake?
Again, you've got some very thin volume there. It's one that I'd be more interested in seeing what it does at the open to see if this kind of holds, or if the bulls in the stock kind of come in and sweep up all the bids down. I guess I can pull up the daily chart to see where the bottom is. Looks like, again, you've got another bottom around the little below that $44 level.
Yep.
What do you think if we break below that roughly $44 level? What do you think? What do you think we're going to be seeing on today's session?
Well, I think Hasbro's going to hold up quite a bit better than that because they didn't report the bad earnings, and rarely do you see the stock in sympathy move down as much as the stock that actually reported the bad quarter. So I don't think you'll see it get that low today. I think Hasbro, the first level that I would look out for is 45.84. It was a low that we made right on July the 5th. I also like it when there's a low right below a whole number like that, because a lot of times high frequency traders will take it through a whole number number, hit some stops, buy from those stops, and take it back higher. So 45.84 is the first level of support that I would look at. It starts to take that out, it could start to cascade through the 45 handle because there's not that much below there. But longer term, there's great support down there where you're citing in the 43.80 area. I just don't think it's got enough momentum to get down there today. Obviously, I'm a little more concerned on the Mattel, which actually just, believe it or not, just ticked down to 43 here. So now that Mattel, if we go back to it just for a second, has traded 43, we're getting more information as the show goes on here. Now it's taken out that 43.80 level. But either way, that 43.80 level has a lot of relevance because of those 6 lows. Lots of traders have positions from that area. So if that's just a good swing number all around, if it comes back up to that 43.80, let's say it opens 43, then all of a sudden 43.80 we would use as resistance. But that 43.80 level still has relevance even if the stock trades below it. Let's move on to a couple of the other ones. There's some smaller companies, but Abbott Labs reported here this morning as well. ABT stock reported 46 cents versus 44. 5.45 billion versus 5.52 billion. Stock is traded as high as 36 bucks. I believe that was actually right after the report. That's a little bit of an overshoot. Stock trading down now at 35.50. So it looks pretty muted activity here in Abbott Labs. 3,100 shares only traded. I'm probably going to fly through these, Jake, because there's just a few of them. STJ also reported earnings, which is St. Jude Medical. Not a lot of volume on St. Jude this morning. Only 300 shares have traded. They did beat 96 cents versus 94, 1.4 billion versus 1.36 billion. A stock is trading up 70 cents here and bid up in the pre-market right now at 49.17. I think I've got this whole big psychological $50 level probably on the radar here today. If it gets up in that area, might be some high frequency, might be some institutional resistance up in the whole $50 area. Below that, the high yesterday was, just grabbing a 49.30, so that might be a key swing number for the stock there too. But it looks like STJ is going to open higher. USB also reported here, which is US Bancorp. Stock is trading down here in the pre-market. This is interesting because this is one of the only banks that didn't beat. USB reporting inline earnings of 76 cents versus 76 cents. 4.95 billion versus 5 billion, so a top line miss for USB2. And when all the banks have been kind of hitting it out the park, kind of scary when a bank reports inline earnings. Stock is trading down here 40 cents in the pre-market at 36.90. Yesterday's low 36.93, so that could give you some resistance there. And there's a lot of air below here on USB, probably a lot of air down till the low you get on July the 3rd at 36 bucks. So I don't see much in the 36 handle, which is a scary thing for a stock like USB. Although the beta is lower on USB, it usually doesn't bounce and have as much volatility as some of the other ones. So I don't know if it can see that 36 there today, but I do see potential for that weakness through the 36 handle. Any thoughts on USB there, Jake?
I mean, I think your initial thoughts there were right. When you have every bank, or at least most of the banks, knocking it out of the park, and they report in line, you really want to kind of dive into that report and see, how are they getting to that number?
Also have PKG reported earnings here this morning, Packaging Corp of America. That stock is actually making a new 52-week high. They beat on the top, beat on the bottom. 71 cents versus 63 cents, and 800.2 million versus 799 million. So both package top and bottom line beat. 52.96 was the 52-week high. We just ticked above there right now at 53.12. So it did on the initial spike get up to $54. That was right after the earnings report. That I think was maybe just an odd lot though or something, because I don't see that tape on the consolidated tape, and it doesn't show odd lots on the consolidated tape there. So I'm not sure if that $54 was either before or if that was an odd lot up there. But regardless, 53.12 is where it's been trading at here in the pre-market.
We got housing starts coming in for the month of June. Reading there, 836,000. Economists were looking for a reading of 960,000. That's down 9.9%. Building permits for the month coming at 911,000. Economists were looking for a reading of 1 million. That's down about 7.5% month over month.
These S&P futures are bouncing around quite a bit off of that housing start number. Thanks, Brent, for breaking that in. We were actually flat. We're up now 3 points here, so they're liking this housing start number. We are rallying up pretty significantly here right now. You can see the spike on the chart, 75.5, 76 just ticked here. So we are booting up here right now. Just rallied 5 points off of that number, which is a pretty big move. Considering our overnight range was 8 points, we just basically just flew right through the top of that range and continue to making new highs here at 76.25. Any thoughts there, Jake?
I mean, I was really surprised at how much of a run we got there. I just want to kind of pull up the XHB, which is the
Sure.
home builders
Yep.
ETF, see what it's doing. Looks like it's not really bidding around at all. If the futures are reacting that positively to that report, I'm surprised we're not seeing anything from the XHB.
Yeah, there's not a lot of action in the home builders themselves here yet either. That you see that typically this early in the morning. It's just wide. Those are thinner traded stocks. So the XHB obviously made up of the home builders in there too. So that could be the reason there. But we are pulling back down here. This rally is very short-lived. We actually, wow, we're so choppy right now. We're up 3. We just were up only 1.5. So we are bouncing around like crazy on these S&P futures here right now with this home builders number. Let's quickly go back to a couple other stocks that we wanted to highlight. I was talking about PKG, just saying the whole 53.12 area. I'd still keep an eye on the 52-week high as a good swing number, which is 52.96, on the whole $53 psychological level. If you take out that 53 in the regular session, the rally would continue, but I'd use that $53 as my swing number if I was trading this stock today. And we have some huge reports tonight, which we should just quickly highlight here too, Jake. We've got IBM going to report, we've got Intel going to report, we've got eBay going to report, and we've got American Express going to report. And quickly going to the American Express, if you want, we're going to stop at American Express because it's got other news here. Financial Times releasing a report last night after the bell that the EU is proposing a capping transaction fees on their credit cards or on their cards. So this is hitting American Express very, very hard. This is hitting MasterCard and this is hitting Visa, but it seems to be hitting American Express the most. And actually here, American Express is trading down now almost $3.50. This is an absolute killing for American Express. It's a stock that made a new 52-week high just a couple days ago, and now actually selling off here over $3.50 at $74.90. So this news terrible for American Express. Interesting enough, I was actually trading this last night, and this was very slow to react. This report came out just after the bell over in Europe in the Financial Times, and American Express started trading down 5 or 7 minutes later, was trading actively in the 77 handle, eventually got down to the 76 handle, bounced back into the 77 handle. This morning, it is way worse here today. I don't know if everybody got up and they've actually read this report or read this the Financial Times article here now and saying, look, I don't want to own the American Express. Get me out here. Get me out in the pre-market because, wow, it is getting just murdered here this morning. Do you have that pre-market chart there again on that, Jake? Yeah, well,
Yep, there we go.
74.40 is the low here. So this stock is traded down almost as much as $4. Are you got any thoughts here on this Financial Times article there, Jake?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that with that news coming out right before earnings like this, it's bidding down so much, and I know there's a lot of traders that don't really want to mess around with a stock leading right into earnings, but I feel like, the bulls might see that this is an entry point before the earnings report. So I feel like we're going to see some interesting volatility today and things that you might not normally see simply because there's going to be bulls that might not normally or might not want to get in simply because we've got earnings after the close. Some traders that may not want to get out simply because we have earnings after the close. So I don't know. I feel like this is not going to exactly react normally to bearish news like this. So I think we might be getting a little bit of an overreaction.
Yeah, but absolutely crazy volume here on it too. 242,000 shares. That's a ton of volume for American Express in the pre-market here. This is just an absolutely incredible move here down. I wouldn't have thought it would knock this much off it, but it is. So you can't argue. Price action tells all. 74.40 is the pre-market low, so that is the number that I will be watching in the regular session. A lot of times with the numbers that they hit in the lows in the pre-market sometimes make the lows in the regular session as well. So keep that 74.40 level in mind. I think this thing starts to get up. It's got a lot of air until you get up into the 76.5 area, but man, it's hard to come in here and buy it. And obviously the unknowns with the stock reporting here after hours as well. So lots of fundies pushing around American Express. So we know technicals take a back seat when the fundamentals are out. Let's just quickly look at Mastercard, MA, and Visa because both of them are down on this as well too. Mastercard is traded as low as 579.10, so holding up quite a bit better than the American Express. Visa has held up the best of them all. I guess their European exposure must be a little bit less there, or I think it might actually even be a separate company. But Visa 187.91 is where it's trading at, so it's only down $1.50 on this news. So Visa holding up very well, Mastercard holding up okay, American Express annihilated on it. We were going to talk about IBM too because they report tonight. IBM obviously had a pretty inside day yesterday, trading yesterday's range was 192.68, high was 194.58. It is trading up here, well actually just ticked down 193.77, but was trading up at 194.06. So IBM, we got to remember last time though, it did disappoint and disappointed big time. So sometimes that means there could be some people nervous holding it into earnings here this time. So we'll have to see what happens in the regular session if we have few people nervous looking to get out ahead of the earnings report there on IBM. A couple upgrades and downgrades too. Just before we end the show, we got McDonald's getting downgraded at Janney Capital, and we got Johnson & Johnson getting downgraded at Deutsche Bank. McDonald's trading down $1 here right now at 99.84, closed at 188, so it's down $1. Mickey D's getting downgraded here. Any thoughts there on Mickey D's there, Jake?
I mean, it's not a huge downgrade. I think they're probably just kind of looking at it that $100 level as a possible exit point. I haven't dove too deep into the report yet, so I can't make any real deep comments. But I mean, you're not seeing a massive trade down. I wouldn't be surprised if it recovered at the open.
Yesterday's low 99.47, so that might be an area where it finds some initial support. Johnson & Johnson also obviously reported earnings there yesterday morning. They opened strong, but then got weak throughout the day, closed weak. I never like to see that. Same thing we were saying on Tesla yesterday morning when and we were saying that in the Q&A session that Tesla had opened strong on an upgrade, then closed weak, and that's never a good sign. Obviously, we saw what happened to Tesla. Johnson & Johnson closed out, or closed fairly weak after the pretty decent report. Deutsche Bank not liking the report. They're downgrading the stock today, so it's down another 50 cents here on J&J, right trading at that critical $90 support area. Takes that out, it could start to cascade through the 89 handle. We did quickly just mention Tesla. We might as well mention it again because, wow, that was an absolute bashing that stock took yesterday. We were citing that it had a key reversal yesterday in the Q&A session. Obviously, I thought it was going to have some weakness. I had no idea it was going to have that much weakness. That was absolutely crazy. Took throughout every support that was even there. You got to think it's bouncing here this morning up 69 cents, but this is not one of those stocks I think that's just going to have a dead cat bounce. I don't think the stock is going to bounce back to 120 here. I think there's a lot of people that were sitting on profits and a lot of people still sitting on profits, and as this thing starts to rally, people will be like, okay, get me out, get me out, get me out. So it was just such a reversal yesterday, obviously the day before and yesterday now. So this down day here, I think they might have $100 on the radar. I don't know if it has enough gas to get there today, but it wouldn't surprise me if we start to approach that, if the $100 level starts to act like a magnet for Tesla. So could bounce here a little bit today, but I don't see it bouncing back like $10. It might bounce a few bucks. But I do think there could be some more short-term weakness here in Tesla as well. That's really all we've got time for here today. Thanks again, Jake, for helping out with the show. 3.5 points. We were up on the S&P futures. We'll be back with you guys on all those earnings reports there tomorrow.